Alright YouTube, this is your boy GB Reviews Everything. Today I wanted to talk to you about the 4 things that I love about my Ducati Monster 1200R. I talked about this before, about just kind of in the full review that I was going to do the 4 things I liked about the bike. And there are just 4 things that I really like about the bike. And some of them are applicable to just motorcycles in general, but some are really specific to this Ducati Monster 1200R. So with that, I'm going to get into some of the things that I specifically like. The first thing I really like is the kind of the TFT full color display. It is the same display that you see on the Ducati Panigale, and it's just kind of an awesome feat of technology that they put into the Monster. The Monsters before had a very limited display, and I would say in some ways they were just very basic to be digital, considering the kind of displays that Ducati has put out. But this one has a 3-mode display, has the sport mode, it then has the touring mode, which I can switch to right now. Yeah, the touring mode, which gives you a lot more information, and you can go up and down. You see as the trip thing changes, there are different things, the air temperature at the bottom. By just doing a little bit of configuring on the control, it'll make, if you look at the bottom right corner of the display, you'll see that there are different information that's changing. And then for folks who are really worried about riding on a kind of super powerful bike, they have the urban mode. The urban mode is also good for if you are just riding in kind of like unfavorable wet conditions. It tampers the urban mode, changes it to a 100 horsepower engine, which gives you a little bit less power, same amount of torque, but less power, but it allows you to not get yourself into sticky situations. It's a great display. I find this one, I rarely use this one only because it has just basic information on it. It doesn't give you the RPMs or anything like that. It gives you basically just the information that you need. I typically ride in the sport mode because the sport mode gives you the things that you actually need in terms of RPMs and the speed, but you can also configure it. If you look at the middle display, if you click up on the control knob, it'll change out different things that you want. It also allows you to custom configure the information in your display. So I'm going to go back to touring just so you can see. Touring display is probably the most useful for your everyday rider just because it gives you all of the information that you need. It gives you 2 different things. I told you on the bottom left, it gives you some information, and on the bottom right, it gives you some different information, which is great. I also like the fact that in this display, it actually tells you the gear you're in. Because again, in the old Monsters and in some of the current Monsters, like the 1200S and the 1200, they don't give you as much information. So the second thing I love about this one, and I'm not going to talk a lot about this, is the stabilizing arm. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go out. The R is the only one that actually comes with the stabilizer. If you want to have a stabilizer on your bike, you will be required to purchase a separate stabilizer. But this has an Öhlins stabilizer, and I find I've ridden both types, with the stabilizer and without, and this bike rides just like my former 848 Course Evo. It just has a racing kind of feel to it, and it's adjustable. It's fully adjustable, so you can crank it here, the crank on the side, but you can crank that crank, and it is fully adjustable, so you can make it as loose or as tight as you want. But I think that's just an amazing feature. The third thing I love about this bike is the ride height. You may not be able to tell just by looking at it, but if you've ever sat on the 1200 or the 1200S, the ride position is actually a little bit more upright, and the pegs are kind of in a weird way, so you find your feet are just not as comfortable as you would think they should be. The configuration for the pedals in this, because it's a track laid out bike, the 1200R, just the way the pedals are laid out and the ride height is more similar to your kind of the Ducati sport bikes, the Panigales, the 949 or 959 and the Panigale 1200s. They are just, it's configured similarly, but not quite as sloped forward. So your handlebars are normal, so that means you can do long rides. So I can easily ride more than 2 hours with this bike without feeling uncomfortable. But I also can get into a very sporty riding position behind this kind of little miniature windscreen. I'll show you that, just a miniature windscreen. But I can get into that position and feel very comfortable riding with my friends who have sport bikes at high speed, or I can actually just cruise around the countryside, and it's actually quite nice. The final thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm not going to talk about very long, is the ability to park your bike anywhere. And I wouldn't say anywhere. I mean, you will get tickets. Like, I've gotten over $150 worth of tickets in one day parking in the wrong place at the wrong time, but that was in a kind of a commuter lane, or not commuter lane, but what they call it, commuter time. And so yeah, I paid the price that day. But in most cases, when you're going into the city, you can park pretty much anywhere, which is excellent. You can park in between spaces, and normally in places like DC where I live, you can get bike parking at the meter, which is a lot cheaper. So to park your bike all day in DC at a bike parking spot is $4, whereas with the car it's probably like $3 every 2 hours. So those are the 4 things I love about this bike. So I like the display, I like the ride height, I like the ability to park anywhere, and I like the stabilizer. So if you're thinking about getting this bike, I definitely recommend it. It is a good compromise for people who are trying to transition away from the back pain of a sport bike, but want the sportiness that you don't necessarily get in a true cruiser. This gives you the ability to do cruising, it gives you the ability to go to the track, and it gives you the ability to have fun. So with that, I'm saying goodbye to you guys today. Hope that you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe below. GB out.